Bluegills are easy to catch in the spring. You can catch them right offshore with worms, but how do you catch fish like this year-round, all summer long into the fall? Well, I'll tell you what, you're going to find out at our fishing workshop, which we're having April 12th at Okemos High School. You're going to learn all kinds of techniques for all kinds of species from all kinds of experts. But just in case you can't make it to the workshop, you're in luck. Stay tuned. We're going to give you a rundown of fishing ABCs. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night. Time for Michigan Outdoors.
From
flies and lures and baits and rods and reels and techniques and places to go and when to fish. How do you decide what to do? Well, we're going to give you 6 hours nonstop of hints at our 1986 fishing workshop at Okemos High School starting at 9:30 in the morning for a half hour. Gary Craig from Lansing is going to talk about bluegills. Now look at the way that bluegill is just toying with that bait. They do this in the winter, ice fishing. They don't hit a lure, smack a lure like you think. They suck it in. Gary's going to talk about how to catch those hard-to-catch bluegills and using this feature from a previous Michigan Outdoors show that we did last year. And that's Gary Craig, 9:30 in the morning for a half hour talking about bluegills at the fishing workshop. Lots of tips. Then at 10 o'clock, Captain Pete Rubianis will take over talking about salmon. He'll show the tape that we did 3 years ago where we got 33 salmon in 4 hours, and he'll talk about his techniques. One thing Pete does is he does not change lures. That's a big thing with a lot of fishermen, changing lures to catch the fish, but he's not a believer in switching lures and switching colors as much as he has in changing locations. He'll explain the hows and whys of his techniques and why he thinks he catches more fish. I mean, he catches more fish, but he'll explain what the reasons are that he thinks makes the difference. Bob Musselman will start at 10:30 in the morning with his film Porkin' for Bass. Nobody uses pork rind for bass more effectively than Bob Musselman from Kalamazoo. He uses it on all types of different lures in the lily pads. He's going to give you techniques on how you can pull big bass out of water in the heat of the summer, in the middle of the day on crowded lakes using pork rind lures. Fascinating presentation. That's Bob Musselman at 10:30. Subject is bass. And each of these fishermen, by the way, will be spending a half hour to an hour after their workshop where they're available for questions and answers. 11, Pete Rubianis is back on the schedule talking about spring brown trout fishing. He'll be showing the tape that we made with Ed Mikula last spring right offshore, and that's what Pete's going to be talking about, the close-to-shore fishing for the big ones, and that's coming up right now in a month or two. You're going to find out the techniques on how to troll close to shore, catch brown trout. Here we caught an Atlantic salmon, coho salmon, Chinook. He's going to reveal the early spring techniques for a half hour. That is at 11 o'clock. Right there you can see this is close to shore fishing. Pete Rubianis will give you the scoop. Now at 11:30, we're going to shift to stream fishing with steelhead trout. Gary Craig will be doing the presentation, showing a how to do it film that we've had on Michigan Outdoors, I think about 4 years ago. This is Gary Marshall battling a steelhead in the Platte River. We're going to show you how to go about steelhead fishing in the spring and in the fall. Gary has a presentation of equipment and techniques and tips where you can get in on the steelhead fishing action. Steelhead, by the way, are a dynamite fish, especially in the spring and the fall when they're in the streams. They battle and they take to the air. That's what steelheading is all about. That presentation at 11:30 with Gary Craig. Then at noon, we come up with a fellow who has been on Michigan Outdoors a number of times before because he produces walleye like nobody we've fished with. Mark Martin, here he is. Turn the cameras on Mark where he's catching about a 6 or 7 pound walleye. He does his fishing at night. There's a few techniques he uses. He also doesn't change lures that much, but he keeps his lures extremely sharp, his hooks extremely sharp. But he's going to reveal the secrets of how he goes about fishing and where. Muskegon Lake is his lake. That's Mark Martin at noon on walleye. Much of his fishing for the big ones is done at night. Now at 12:30, we're going to change gears a little bit, talk about stream trout. Bill Ludlow, Ludlow's Fly Shop in Hazlitt. He's a fly tyer, a stream fisherman. He knows how to go after the brooks, the browns, the rainbows in the streams. He's going to be doing his 12:30 presentation, talking about what trout eat, where they live, how to go after them, to a degree with bait, but also with flies. He's a specialist in using flies and lures after trout. Now he's going to talk about some of the things in the streams that the trout eat. These aquatic insects are very important to matching the hatch. That subject, stream trout, 12:30, Bill Ludlow. Then at 1 o'clock, we're going to get into the big fish with the big teeth, Bill Rustum, who used to be with Governor Milliken's office, his environmental advisor. Bill knows more about pike and muskie fishing than most people. He can land them when nobody else can, it seems. He has a rundown on pike and muskie fishing in the summer. Now, northern pike and muskie hit primarily in the middle of the day, unlike the big walleye, which you catch at night. They have teeth. The question is, should you use wire leaders or not? A lot of pike fishermen say no. Find out what Bill Rustum says about pike and muskie fishing with a whole array of lures and techniques to make it simple to learn how to catch them. That's at 1 o'clock. Pike and muskie with Bill Rustum. Then at 1:30, well, this is going to be an interesting session for us. We have had a couple of catfish fishing trips. Gary Craig has seen these trips, and he said, you know, there's a few things that I can explain to people on how to make catfish fishing more fun and more successful. Catfish are an interesting type of fish. They oftentimes hit at night. They use their barbels to actually smell the bait. So you use baits that have some odor to them to attract those catfish. Great eating fish. Gary Craig is going to explain how you can increase your catfish fishing success. And that is going to be at 1:30. Spines on a catfish. He's going to tell you how to hold them, how to grab them, and how to prepare them too. Now, 2 o'clock, fellow who we've fished with earlier this winter on Saginaw Bay, caught us tons of perch, Gail Bedore. Now, the perch are hitting right now. They were hitting this past spring. He's going to show the tape that we did up there of perch and walleye fishing. There I am, catching a big one out of the Bronco, but I tell you, there's a lot of big perch being caught in Saginaw Bay right now. Gail Bedore is going to give the techniques on how to do that, as well as those of you who want to know about the walleye fishing on the Tittabawassee River and out in the mouth of Saginaw Bay. Gail Bedore is going to give you the scoop on that at 2 p.m. Then at 2:30, fly fishing for trout. Bill Ludlow is going to talk about specifically fly fishing during the day as well as the night with the hex hatches, matching the hatch. Here we're on a trip with Tom Opry, and Bill Ludlow will be showing this tape and commenting on it. All of the experts will be commenting on these features that we've had on Michigan Outdoors, the things we've done right, the things we've done wrong. There's one of the aquatic or terrestrial insects right now in the that we are imitating with a fly. There's on your left was the actual fly, on the right was the imitation fly. Bill Ludlow at his booth will be showing how to tie flies and also doing fly casting demonstrations twice during our workshop. There it is, a nice brown trout taken from the Manistee River. No, that was the Osable River with Tom Opry. Then at 3 o'clock, winding back down again, Gary Craig is going to give his rundown on bluegills. We also have a special presentations by Berkeley Trilene. They are going to be doing workshops at 10, 11, 1, and 2 on fishing line, tackle, fish sensory perception. All of this at our workshop. You can catch more fish and bigger fish. Join us on April 12th. Now that's a lineup of experts, a lineup of subjects. It all begins at 9:30. Where do you have to be? Well, head out on I-96 to Okemos High School, which is exit 110 on Okemos Road. That's just east of East Lansing. That'll be from 9:30 to 3:30. Our handicappers workshop will start at 10 o'clock. But that's where you want to go, Okemos High School off Okemos Road, I-96. Let's see where the fish are hitting. See, one problem is right now winter is backing down in the Upper Peninsula, so there's not a lot going on in the way of fishing up there right now. Of course, rabbit season is closed statewide. No hunting seasons are open. However, bananas, Gail Bedore says bananas, Saginaw Bay in the cuts. We're not fishing for bananas. The perch are going bananas, catching a lot of them. Gail in his bait shop at Quanakesee is selling 50,000 minnows a day, so they're really catching them. That's in the cuts, the tributaries leading into Saginaw Bay. Speaking of bananas, let's see smelt. Any day-o for the smelt. The St. Clair River at Port Huron, they're getting a few, but it takes a couple hours to get enough for a meal. They are catching some 12 to 14-inch perch in the Black River leading into Port Huron, and from Algonac all the way up to Port Sanilac, salmon action is picking up. A good sign for salmon fishermen. Steelhead fishermen, try the Muskegon River.
Mark Martin, who's also an ace steelhead fisherman, caught 7 the other day in just an hour. There's high water up at Manistee, Emil Dean reports, but he says there's also tons of fish. Any day now, we're going to have a short 5 or 6 day smelt run in Bel Air. That 42 degrees is the water temperature. It's a short smelt run. We're going to try to get our cameras up there, see if we can't bring you some of that action. So we do have some fishing. There's a lot more right around the corner, and that's when you're going to catch the big one. It's going to put you in our trophy book.
The beginning of March a year ago, Tom Brown from Cadillac was testing out a new fishing rod on the Big Manistee about 1.5 miles below Tippy Dam. Using a wiggler on a single egg hook, he caught himself a 16-pound, 1-ounce steelhead, 31 inches long. Then a week later, Alan Ludwig from Columbiaville was ice fishing on Barnes Lake, Lapeer County, when something hit his minnow and snapped his line, so he tied on another hook, dropped a minnow down 20 feet, and seconds later, he pulled this 15.5-inch crappie to the surface, a master angler qualifier. On March 19th, 1985, Don Shover from National City had pulled his shanty off East Tawas Bay. He was fishing last ice for perch. Now, something was nibbling at his Russian hook. He finally hooked it. After a battle that lasted, he said, just a few seconds, he pulled this 1.5 pound Menominee whitefish onto the ice. 18 inches long, this trophy book qualifier was the only fish he caught all day. Now, related to the whitefish is lake herring, or cisco, a fish found in northern Michigan waters. Herman Eddy was jigging a Swedish pimple a year ago at the end of March in Mullet Lake. He had just pulled his shanty, fishing in the open air 90 feet down in 115 feet of water. His trophy, a 3 3/4 pound cisco, 21 inches long, the #1 cisco of 1985. Last year, the steelhead were hitting all through March. This 16-pound 2-ouncer hit a fly at Tippy Dam. The technique was drifting. The fly was a home-tied wiggler fly, 6-pound test line. Bob's party of 5 took 26 steelhead that day. This 33-incher was the biggest, which gives Bob Giles from Highland the honor of being our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Angler of the Week.
This new license package changed a few things in the licensing system. One big change for southern Michigan hunters is they will no longer have to buy a public access dam. Instead, 35 cents out of each small game license sold in southern Michigan will be dedicated towards the purpose and the fund of leasing land for hunter access across southern Michigan. Now, the governor has signed a bill that is absolutely a refreshing sign of things to come. What this bill does is much like Proposal B that took oil and gas revenues from state general fund lands, this takes oil and gas revenues from lands which were bought by fish and game funds and dedicates them to building a trust fund for the Fish and Game Protection Fund. In other words, in 5 or 6 years, the earnings and interest from these oil and gas revenues might be enough to offset future license increases, and at the very least, if they don't offset them, they will mitigate them and keep them much smaller than perhaps they would be otherwise. Good move by the legislature, great move by the governor on this. In this boat offer, many people around the state of Michigan are getting is, what it is it gives you 48 hours to call in and get your free boat. Of course, there is a charge, a boat and outboard motor, there is a charge of $129 to get this free boat and motor. I guess it's an inflatable craft. The Attorney General of the state of Michigan, Frank Kelly, has a file on it. I took a look at it yesterday. About 6 or 7 folks have written the Attorney General to complain about this boat offer. I added my name to the list, made a complaint, and the Attorney General will be doing some tracking down on this. So remember, you get off times what you pay for or a little less. DNR is asking for help on their surveys. I received also in my mail this week a bow hunter survey. Some things to remember. It's awfully important in determining the number of deer taken in the state of Michigan. Please fill out those survey forms and get them back pronto to the department. This outdoor reminder this week that the 1985 fishing licenses, they've expired, and that was on Monday, March 31st. Get your new one.
Bob, if you don't have your fishing license, you won't be able to apply for any of our hunting or fishing awards, at least, in our Stroh's Fishing Award program, because you have to sign an affidavit that says you have your valid license. So get that.
I got mine Monday, as a matter of fact. By the way, we get some letters, too. This one comes from Jim Painter of Wademan. He writes in, he says, some of us master anglers who turned in fish during 1985 would like a list of the qualifiers and how they ranked. How do we go about obtaining such a list?
Well, the list, we publish a list here every other month in the digest of the species that were caught this period of time last year. So you can tell by this. We haven't published a trophy book that has the entire year and all the rankings in it. We may do that. The DNR puts out the top 5. So I understand your problem. Of course, at the banquet this Saturday night, we'll have all the data there on our computer printout, so you can check it out there.
Fred, a good question on archery here from Mark Kowalczyk of Ortonville, Michigan. He writes in and says, this fall I had a problem with fish-tailing arrows. I used Game Getter 2114s with Wasp Camlock 4s in my 60-pound Darton SL50. Is there any way I can keep the arrows from fish-tailing?
You bet, Mark. We talked to Dave Schroeder from Anderson Archery, and he started us out on the answer.
Okay, well, Mark's problem basically was, I believe, his arrow was a little bit too light, complicated by the fact that his fletching was hitting his arrow rest. Without seeing his bow would be my first guess. His broadhead was a Wasp Camlock, which was this guy here, which is a very easy head to make shoot if your arrow is proper. Your arrow has to match your bow, as well as your fletching has to match your bow. Once you get these combinations put together, you're going to get a good flying arrow.
And here is a good flying arrow that Dave Schroeder is popping right in the bullseye. Can't beat it. Now watch. You see in slow motion, we'll put it backwards and forwards, that arrow is not fishtailing. Straight as an arrow, as it were. That's what you want. That's what you get when the arrow is heavy enough to match the bow for that acceleration. But here's the arrow that was used by Mark here. See the way it fishtailed? Watch it. In slow motion, that's the 2114 in a comparable bow. That's what happens when you don't have the arrow matched with the bow the way it should be. That's probably the main problem with the fishtailing arrows. There's other things that can cause it. By the way, Anderson Archery is having their big clinic the third weekend in June in Grand Ledge. They'll answer all of your questions there because there's more archery experts than you ever find in one location at the Anderson Clinic, third week and in June. Now, let's see if you can answer this question in our outdoor quiz.
How many United States citizens own firearms? Over 40 million citizens in the United States own firearms for hunting, target shooting, or home protection. Statistics show that communities with higher percentages of gun owners experience lower crime rates than communities where private gun ownership is lower.
Here is a fisherman with a story to tell that we hope is going to have an upbeat ending. David Waterworth, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The story you have to tell, you're a fly fisherman of long standing, right?
That's correct.
And you had a friend who you fished with for many years?
Yes. My friend is now a quadriplegic, and we've been working for 2 years into getting him into fly fishing, and he's very good right at this point, but we don't have any place to go fishing.
So he was, you said this was on the way back from an opening day or something when he
Yes.
had an auto accident?
Yes, and he is now disabled, and he is a very good fly caster and a real good worker, but he's just really frustrated because of the position we're in.
Well, the position that you're in, a lot of people don't realize it. Even quadriplegics and people with handicaps can get equipment to cast with. Now, he can cast how far?
He can cast about 40 to 60 feet and pinpoint a cast.
So what's the problem?
We've been casting on his back deck, and there's no water around, and he has no actual place to go out and try his skills out.
But now here's where a program that was developed in New York called Project Access comes in, and you're a part of that, trying to spread it to Michigan. Here's a slide here, Dave. This is of a fellow who is working with that program. He says this piece of stream is negotiable, say, by people on crutches, right?
That's correct, or the elderly.
And the problem is, how do you get there? Well, here's another bank of a stream that looks like many banks and some good fishing.
Well, what they're trying to do is create easy access and easy path traveling to go from the cars to the stream.
Parking lot, number one problem. A lot of times those spaces aren't wide enough for a wheelchair.
Exactly. It takes about 36 inches of width to get through with a wheelchair.
And after that, there's got to be a path, a decent type of path, to get down to the water.
Yes, with about a 5% incline. That's quite a steep drop there, but what they're working with there is a switchback, which is a going down and then coming back down to the stream.
Well, you're working here in Michigan, working with some Trout Unlimited chapters and
Yes.
you're a committee of one,
Yes.
trying to pull people together to develop paths like this to get down to the river. Or, you know, we don't have to provide this on every fishing access point.
No.
But there are a lot of people who use wheelchairs and a lot of us baby boomers who will be using wheelchairs or be disabled to some degree in the future.
That's
right?
correct.
Now, what does this represent here?
This product is called GeoWeb. It's a honeycomb plastic that's real easy for a group or individuals to get down to the stream. And what we want to do with this product is put it down in the stream beds, make paths to down to the streams, and
So people on wheelchairs and so on, or crutches, or even elderly people who can't walk that well or that far can have some good footing.
that's correct.
I mean, you and I know out on opening day fishing all season long, sometimes it's fairly precarious out on the streams.
What's nice about the GeoWeb is that they put it down and it stays. It's covered by dirt. It doesn't take away from the aesthetic beauty of the streams.
And it's a
whereas-
project that people could work on and clubs could work on. You called after last week's show, and you said, hey, here I am, committee of one in Lowell, Michigan, and you're willing to help our workshop.
That's
And of
correct.
course, what I said to you is, you don't have to come and help the workshop. We want to help you. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out here. I'm just doing an appeal here to come to the workshop. If you're a business or a handicapped person or an organization interested, if you have places to fish or feel that you can plug in some way or another, because this is going to be big. Don't you
It
think,
will
David?
be. It's amazing. I've been working on it for a month in Michigan, and now I'm on television.
Hey, and we're going to get you and your buddy a place to fish.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to see David Waterworth at the workshop. One of the events coming up right now on our outdoor calendar.
Don't feel bad if you didn't get your tickets in time for the Stroh's Fishing Awards banquet Saturday night. We'll bring you the highlights next week right here on Michigan Outdoors. Multi-Lakes Conservation Club is the site of a small bore rifle silhouette shoot this Saturday. Also on Saturday, the Battle Creek chapter of Ducks Unlimited is sponsoring a wildlife art show at the Battle Creek Art Center. Local chapters of the Michigan Wild Turkey Federation are sponsoring workshops at the Sanford Meridian High School on Saturday and Mott High School in Warren next Wednesday night. Bob's Gun Shop in Hastings will hold a wild turkey hunting extravaganza all day Saturday and Sunday. Hicks Tackle is sponsoring a fishing seminar and workshop all weekend at Jordan College in Flint. There's a wood carving show Saturday and Sunday in Madison Heights. The Michigan Bird and Game Breeder Sale is on tap this Sunday at the Wynn Recreation Area. Long's Convention Center in Lansing will be the site of the Andy Ammon chapter of the Rough Grouse Society annual banquet April 10th. Perhaps the best display of wildlife art in Michigan takes place next Thursday through Sunday at the Southfield Civic Center, sponsored by the Michigan Wildlife Habitat Foundation. Fred Trost Fishing Workshop is an event you won't want to miss. Saturday, April 12th at Okemos High School. About a dozen of the top fishermen we've been fishing with over the past few years will be there to give you the true skinny on how to catch more fish in big fish. Don't forget our meeting of handicapped sportsmen also at the fishing workshop. Individual handicappers and organizations are invited to attend. Hope to see you there. Fred Trost Outdoor Fair is just around the corner, June 27th through the 29th at Houghton Lake. Fishing ought to be great that weekend at the Fish Factory, so bring the kids and come on up. If you missed a number, call the Michigan Travel Bureau at 1-800-292-2520. And that's a look at this week's Michigan Outdoors calendar.
Oh, boy. For those of you who don't recognize this is a Houghton Lake bluegill fillet. Now, it's sort of embellished with a little bit of breading.
Just a little bit, very light.
Bob's favorite kind. Right,
Oh,
Bob?
I love it.
You bet. Is there any more of this stuff left after we get through here?
Yeah, you can eat it with your fingers. It's as beer batter.
It tastes
Very
better
simple
when you eat
recipe.
it with your fingers. It
does,
really
it's-
does.
It's easy to make, but let's
Could
take
put
a
it
look
on
at
bun.
these. Yeah, take a
There's
look
the
at these
bluegill
bluegills.
fillets.
Oh,
Look at the size.
They're so scrumptious, and you want to keep that white flesh,
Oh, yeah.
steamed and the way a beer batter does.
And this keeps it real moist. Okay, we're going to not deep fry these, but pour them in quite a bit of oil. It's got paprika and garlic salt and pepper, and egg. And that's what makes your batter light, real light and fluffy, and sticks to the fish good.
A little bit like pancake.
Right. And beer and 2 cups of flour.
So start
It
off with
takes
the flour.
all of the beer, right.
Yeah, I was surprised at that. For 2 cups of flour, it takes a
Minus a swallow or two, but
full can.
and a beaten egg. Just beat it a little bit.
You know,
Salt and pepper.
the ingredients that you're going to put in here, I can't really detect as I taste this.
You can't taste any one individual one. They're all just kind of there together. is garlic salt. Now, the little specks you see here are dehydrated garlic. You can actually see them in the salt.
The little yellow is the rest of it salt? Just
A
salt?
little bit of soy sauce or soy oil in it. Paprika. Now, paprika comes from the pepper family. It's ground very, very fine. It's not a hot pepper. It's just a good green bell pepper, red bell pepper.
As I said, I can't taste those spices in
Individually,
there.
no, you can't.
Can you, Bob?
I can taste some beer, believe it or not. I really can.
I can't taste that
Yeah, I
either.
can't either.
I think the beer gives it more of a texture.
And a tang, maybe just a little bit of a tang taste to it.
That's it. That's it. Good description.
Of course, if you do, like me, tend to have beer in the liquid form, you don't tend to taste it
That's right.
when it's mixed in with flour and a batter.
And this is kind of a thick batter. It's not a real thin batter at all.
And it can be lumpy, a little bit lumpy
absolutely.
too. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be.
You won't get all the lumps out. So just coat your fish and fry it. And it doesn't take very long to fry at all. If you got your oil good and hot, which is the way it should be. Makes them nice golden brown.
And when you turn those over, there they are, frying golden brown. That's about the temperature you want the oil at. And this is it. This is our beer batter fish. And here's some of the bluegill here. I'll just sort of cut this in half here. Well, I think with this piece here, I can peel it back, and you can see the white flesh of the bluegill, which is sort of steamed in the batter. That's what
Right.
one thing that
Just
batter
stays
coating does.
good and moist in there. Doesn't dry out at all.
Can I have a piece of bluegill?
Do you want to give
Not
him that?
mine. No.
No?
I don't want to give him mine.
I'll give Bob a little piece. But I think
Thanks. Your generosity is underwhelming here.
a good basic beer batter recipe, something that you can cook at home. Bob, where can I get a copy of the recipe?
Beer batter fish recipes are some of my real favorites. This particular recipe is in this issue of Fred Trost's Outdoor Digest, along with articles on turkey hunting, shooting, fishing, and fish and game cookery. For a free copy, write to us here at Fred Trost's Outdoor Digest, P.O. Box 6001, East Lansing, Michigan, 48823.
You know the next best thing to catching a trophy fish yourself? Well, hearing about it, of course, hearing the battle story behind it. That's what you're going to hear next week when we present our top fishing awards winners from 1985 at Roma's of Livonia this Saturday night. We're going to have the TV cameras there and capture for you the stories of the big ones that didn't get away. Promise you it's going to be a good show. A lot of these fish are going to be mounted, so you're going to see trophies like you haven't seen before. Next week, we also have a great recipe for herb baked fish, outdoor headlines, and all of our usual features. So join us next week right here on PBS.